Greetings, mortals. I am Chaos, and you have found my video, whether from a short or just browsing my channel, on my take on the elements. So, as I said in the short, there's the prime forces of nature, like water, earth, air, fire, and then there's all the weird ones, like lightning or ice or metal or star. I think those are examples I used. First, I'm going to start with fire, water, earth, air. Okay, so let's imagine it like there's the four elements. They all represent a prime nature of the world, universe, whatever you want to say. And on top of that, they all correlate with each other. See, think of it like I like to think of it as like a wheel. Imagine air at the top of the wheel, water on the right of the wheel, earth on the bottom of the wheel, and fire on the left of the wheel. Now, your views on the wheel might not be accurate to mine, but this is just how I view it. So, to make it make sense, what I thought was air's high up in the sky, free and like carefree, I don't know. Then you shift to water coming down from the sky with the rain, kind of not quite between water or earth, kind of like in between. Then under the water is earth, opposite of air, stable, solid on the ground, absorbing the moisture as it falls onto the earth. Then we go to fire, consuming what the earth does not need and burning it, raising it back up into the air until the cycle can repeat. Now, these are prime elements because of how we break them down into the elemental forces of nature. Now, let's look at all these extra elements. I might miss plenty. If anything, you are welcome to comment on the video, and I might reply saying why this element does or does not work. But what I have settled on a long time ago so far is we have 6 secondary elements. We have ice, we have lightning, we have life, and we have death. These are also prime forces of nature, but they come from the main four. See, ice comes from a mixture of air and water. A little more carefree than water, but a little bit more mentally I don't know, mentally capable? Damn, I feel like I'm dissing air now. Anyway, then we have life, a combination of earth and water. After that, we have earth and fire, making death. And last, for the secondary four, is lightning, which comes from a mixture of fire and air. Now, each of these 4 secondaries lean a little bit more toward one of the 4 primaries than the other. For example, ice leans more toward air, life leans more toward water, death leans more toward earth, and lightning leans more toward fire. Now, I say these because of it like this. Without air, how would you get ice? You need the cooling breeze or a cold temperature to get the ice in the first place. Yes, you have to have water, but plenty of things freeze without there being a solid chunk of water. Then there's life. Without water, there would be no life. Think of all the stuff in the ocean. They don't need the earth, more or less. They do use a little bit of earth, but they primarily focus on water. Then we have death, leans more toward earth because of rock solid bones is a term you might have heard before. We come from the earth, all these other things. So it's only natural that death would return back to the earth, although it can be caused by destructive forces like fire. Then there's lightning. Lightning is, in my view, just condensed fire because both are pure energy, but lightning takes it to a way farther extreme than fire, like condensed rods of fire. While it does live high up in the sky, more or less, it is still pretty much pure condensed fire. Last, in my view, is the two opposites. Think of yin and yang, light and dark, but I like to call them sun and moon because that's a more well-known term in the video game or like game world. So you can't have one without the other. That's obvious. Without light, there'd be no dark. Without dark, there'd be no light. But they can still somewhat coexist independently. You can have the moon without the sun sometimes, and the same other way around. You can have a pitch dark room where there is no light whatsoever, and you can have just a pure bright room without a single shadow. Yeah, your eyes would probably burn, but it is possible. So, also think of it like, I know some of you who may have found this video might argue hard against this, but yes, there are people, it's like 1 in a billion, but there are just these pure souls or beings or whatever that just have the best intentions for people. Like they do no bad or whatever. And then there's the opposite where there's people who just do full bad or deception or just everything. They have not done nearly any good things for other people or themselves in their life, or maybe good things for themselves at the expense of others. So just think of it like that. Then others not being real elements. Okay? Let's start with metal. If you think about metal, you really think about it like, yeah, I guess you could derive it from Earth, but after that, there is no relation to the other four elements. You need at least somewhat of relation to another primary element for it to kind of count as a secondary. And it doesn't count as a primary element because it can be derived from Earth. Then we think about star. Yeah, let's just pretend star is another form of sun, maybe subcategory of sun. Like what could star do that a combination of sun and moon couldn't? Really think about it. Then there might be, let's just take an example from my shorts video, mist. If you're really going to try and count mist as an element, that's just water vapor in the air. Like, what could you do with mist other than create a fog cloud? Like, make a thicker fog cloud versus a thinner fog cloud? Come on. Elements have multiple purposes. They connect with each other, and yet they can stand on their own. How would mist do that? Primary elements and even secondary elements do multiple things in this world to affect others. How would mist do anything other than block your sight? Or maybe water your crops. Who knows? Then you could think of like the element plenty of video games have called tech or technology, or like there's usually a gear symbol somewhere. I remember the video game Skylanders had the tech element. Tech is just ingenuity. That's not an element. Earth would survive fine without ingenuity. Ingenuity comes from humans, not a primal force of nature. The Earth doesn't have frickin' cogs and gears whirling around inside of it naturally. yes, you could go super deep and say things like, "Oh well, there's all these like little ways molten earth moves around inside of itself that kind of looks like a machine." No, we're not going to do that, thank you. Now, I can't really think of any other elements, but if you would like me to disprove or possibly consider an element in my circle, you could totally go ahead and comment. But now that I've explained my view on elements, I'm going to explain how they can do what they do. Things like personality traits that represent each of them, and like what kind of things they could do in video games or games. So let's start with air, since it's at the top of our little circle. I like to think of air likes to rise. Air is ethereal, it's freedom incarnate, it's unbothered, it's careless, it can be reckless, it's fun. Like, just think of all these little characteristics in like a little child, how they're like carefree and they have no thought. They just want to play and have fun and do all these happy little things that adults don't get to do anymore. That's like elemental air. But also, on the flip side of air, air can be intellectual, it can be thoughtful, it can be caring, like a little bit more of a serious tone of air, while still having the freedom aspect of it. Because even through being caring, you have the freedom to care. Even while being inventive and creative, that's your own mind having the freedom to make those things yourself. Things that air could possibly do in video games is like control and solidify air. That's a pretty basic one. Moving air through the uh, empty space, uh, like a gust of wind. It's super basic stuff, guys. But then we could go into a little bit more like illusions. You can control the water vapor in the air, just like tiny minuscule water vapor that doesn't even count as elemental water right now because it's still in the air. Create like refractions in the light and create illusions itself. Super high tier stuff. And then we could go farther and say one practical use of it is like water breathing. You can make a bubble around your head while underwater and pull air from the surrounding water into the bubble so you can continuously breathe, pushing carbon dioxide out of it. You could make, along with controlling and solidifying air, you could make paper thin versions of that and like fling them as blades instead of like just harmless gusts of wind. You could fly, obviously. That's a pretty basic one. One I like to think that would be super cool to do is carrying sounds and smells along the wind. Like you're trying to eavesdrop, you carry sound waves along the wind to your location. Smell is way easier to do because it kind of like floats up and spreads out in the air, so you just gotta like make it travel a little farther to yourself. But that's all I could ever think of for air. For water, water wants to flow. Unbothered, calm, cleansing, adaptability, you know, rather serene, sometimes even posh. Or if you don't know what the word posh means, like you could substitute it for elegant, like maybe a little snobbish, like stuck up, but not to the point of being rude. Just like the rich people that are kind but still refined. Um, some things water can do pretty obviously is like control water. Pretty simple stuff. Controlling water in the air, summoning water out of the moisture in the air is a pretty big one. That's for advanced magic types. Um, if you ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, you've heard of blood bending. Super gruesome stuff, but since the blood in your body is made of water, you could literally control that inside of somebody. It's like the dark magic type of water elements. But other than that stuff, water is pretty simple, just like controlling the liquid around you, making it into jets of high pressure water, or like water spears, water wall, like making water so solid feeling it's like impassable but still not like frozen like a solid wall. And like walking on top of water by solidifying it. You could also do the air bubble thing by pushing water out around you and creating air pocket space. For Earth wants to like be stable. It's a very stable thing. It's very physical and solid. It stands for structure and order and stability, like caring, gentle, firm. You just think of that one friend who you can count on not to make a joke, who can get things done, who's like your rock. That's Earth. Earth can move and shape stone, obviously, like making stone javelin, stone spikes, stone walls. On the more advanced notes, it could also do metal because metal is a part of the earth, so it could shape metal. Not just as easy, but with training, any person using elemental earth could probably do that. Like earth metal bending from Avatar: Last Airbender. Lava is kind of the same thing since lava is just molten rock. But it's like if you try and do that without a little bit of skill on fire elemental magic, it could go wrong. But more or less, all you would really need is the earth. Um, some really advanced stuff for earth is solidifying yourself, making your own body as solid as rock, while still retaining the flexibility to move and not crumble like a piece of petrified stone. You could strengthen your bones, strengthen your will. Earth is a lot about like strengthening stuff and not really weakening it. And fire is destructive. It wants to burn. It stands for heat, warmth, passion, aggressive with what it wants. And aggressive does not always mean the bad way. Like, aggressive could mean something beautiful and they're just really passionate about it and it just looks aggressive. Because it is, but not in a bad way. Fire can create and control flames and heat. And heat means a lot of things. You could take away a person's body heat, for example. Yeah, I talk about a lot of the dark versions of it. You can condense the heat to make explosions, energy. Fire is destructive, but it can also help a lot. It just depends on your view of what fire really is. Next, I'll describe subcategories. Ice is strategic. It's cold. It can be nonchalant. It's for precision. It's for slowness. It's for taking your time to do the things that need to get done without rushing over it and being reckless. Ice could freeze all sorts of things, like freeze water, freeze a person by touching them. Could create an ice wall out of the moisture in the air, but that's like way harder because first you have to summon the water and then you have to freeze the water. But you can also do like little indiscreet things, like you could slow a person down, like putting a chill on their bones, like making somebody lethargic. I don't know, rewind time because of how slow it goes, like freeze time more likely. Then we have lightning, which is pretty much the opposite of ice. It stands for energy. It stands for fast. It stands for speed. It stands for happy, go, fun, reckless, movement, agility. It just wants to go, go, go. Lightning can summon lightning from their hands or body or whatever, like shock people. It could speed things up, increasing reaction time and speed. It could even control the neurons in your brain because those are firing off little sparks every minute of every day of every second or whatever. Then we move on to life. Life stands for growth. It stands for the new. It stands for health. It's for all new beginnings and fresh starts. It's responsible. It's clean. It takes a lot of traits from both earth and water by being adaptable but also responsible. It could be sturdy. Life can help nurture wounds and heal people. Could grow plants like vines or flowers. It could even buff people and animals by like changing their physiology. Because when you think about it, life is more than just plants. It's about animals. It's about the life inside us that keeps us going. And a lot of people don't take that into account when they think elemental life. So essentially, you could manipulate the life inside of somebody to change their physiology, help make them grow horns or wings or whatever. On the opposite side of life is death. You know, death is often reviewed as dark magic, necromancy and stuff like that. I say that, yeah, death is often viewed as bad because that's how people made it seem. Essentially, death is no worse than air, water, or earth, or fire. Death is just something that is and that happens. Like, when you think about it, you die eventually. All things return to the earth. Earth's or death stands for sickness. The undead stands for weakness. It stands for the end of the old. Out with the old, you know. Some things that elemental death could do is decay stuff, spread sickness, necromancy. It could even like do soul related magic, like touching somebody's soul, because that's not alive, it's just something that is. And it could death is often reviewed for plenty of debuffs in games, like giving somebody slowness or weakness, although I re-subcategorize slowness to ice. Death is more like for weakness because it's like your body's betraying you type of stuff. Other than that, I'm gonna go to the sun and moon part. So sun and moon are more opposites than any of the others, while still retaining their own part. Sun stands for the light, the justice, the bright side of things. It's like noble, it's honest, it's courageous, it's hospitality driven, and plenty of things it could do is create light out of nothing. It could inspire courage in people, it could find things, the truth aspect. It could create people, it could make people tell truths instead of lies. Real justice driven things like paladins and clerks, or even more like paladins. So There's that, and then there's the opposite, which is moon, which stands for deception, it stands for lies, it stands for hiding, it stands for the shadows, it's fear, it's loneliness, all the things that people view as negative, which, yeah, they kind of are negative, but think of it again, you can't really appreciate the light without the dark. So, you just you could do things like extinguish light, you could inspire fear in others, you could hide things away, you can move through the shadows, all the like things an assassin or rogue would do. Remember, moon, death, all fire, these things aren't necessarily evil in nature. You always remember it's how people use them. Death and moon are dark. They're only considered evil or bad because that's what history has decided to make it and use it as. Plenty of good things can be achieved using that type of stuff. It's just really hard to because there can be a lot of complications in the way that turn it to the dark side. And as I say this, you gotta consider the opposite side. People in the light, things like water, life, and sun, they can all be used for just as bad things as most of history used death and moon to do. For example, a paladin using the light for justice could consider like a bunch of innocent civilians as evil just because they are stealing to survive. Yeah, stealing's not right, but what else are they supposed to do? Keel over and die? You really gotta find the balance. Like and subscribe if you liked this explanation, if it taught you a few new things, or even if it was just something nice to listen to while you tried the work. Because I do that sometimes. But until next time, farewell, mortals.